All right, so there's a file to download today, mod.ietools.bas. I don't think we've ever brought code in this way before. Every other time we've worked with code, we've brought in a workbook that has code in it. This is just a module that's been exported. So we're going to start with a blank workbook, but we're going to import this module. This module, we'll take a close look at some of the code in this module today, but it's really just code that I've written to kind of facilitate working with Internet Explorer, to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to just have do a blank workbook, and we'll import this module. So, whoa, that's kind of a small window. So I am going to File, Import File. I'm going to look for mod IE tools, what I downloaded, and we'll open her up. So we now have a module here called mod IE tools. Let's not take a deep look at this now, but as we start to use some of these things in our code, we'll kind of take you through and show you what they do. Let's also insert a regular module, insert module, for us to do our work in. Now the whole goal today is to be able to automate interaction with a web server. Now we started the class automating interaction with a web server, right? We use the web query wizard, that tool that's kind of built in. There's two major limitations to the web query wizard. Number one, the only data you have access to from the web query wizard is data that's visible on the page. If what you need on that page is in the underlying HTML, but it's not visible, and probably the most prominent example of this is a link. If you need the text of a link, if you've got to say, hey, I got to get that URL that's part of that link, you're not going to be able to get that from the web query wizard because the web query wizard doesn't show the URLs. It shows whatever text is to be displayed with the link. And the second thing that the web query wizard is unable to do is it doesn't have a convenient way for you to log in to a website. So if the place you have to go to get the data, you got to step one, log in, web query wizard's dead in the water. And so we're going to look at a much more powerful way to do it today. It's also quite a bit more complex, and that is to automate Internet Explorer. Now it turns out through VBA you can automate any web browser that exposes its core functionality through the component object model. And most web browsers expose their core functionality somehow. Chrome exposes its core functionality, I forget the name of it. It exposes its functionality, but not to the component object model. It doesn't do it in the way that VBA is expecting to be able to interact with it. And so although it's possible to automate Chrome, we can't do it directly through VBA. Now, we'll talk about automating Chrome or Firefox, or even Edge here in just a little bit. But first, let me give you the list of browsers that do expose their functionality to the component object model. So top of the list is Internet Explorer. Number 2 on the list, actually there's only one, Internet Explorer. So, and it's kind of brought me to a kind of a crossroads in the class because Microsoft has stopped updating Internet Explorer. So it's now just, what it is what it is, and as standards move forward, Internet Explorer is getting left behind. There are more and more sites now that when you go to it with Internet Explorer, they just say, you know what, get a real browser. We're not going to let you do this. In fact, I was going to try to do an example today with Family Search, go find your ancestors or whatever. And you get there in Internet Explorer and it just says, sorry, not with this browser. So the other approach that we can use, besides just directly manipulating Internet Explorer, is we can use a thing called Selenium. So there's another project, what is this? There's another project called Selenium that will allow you to automate any browser, Internet Explorer or Firefox or anything else. However, it's not native to VBA. You can't just say, I'm gonna do this. You've got to install Selenium to be able to do it. And so on the one hand, that's a little more modern way of doing this. And so I'd like to teach you that way. On the other hand, you've got to have access to the machine you're working on to be able to install software, to be able to make it work. So maybe next year at this time I'll be teaching Selenium. But today I still feel that the right thing, and a lot of the stuff that we're learning here will translate straight over to Selenium anyway, but we're going to see the way to automate Internet Explorer. Number one, you've all got it, and number two, wherever you go, you've got it, even though it's becoming of less and less utility. Okay, so that's the other project called Selenium. Selenium, just like the chemical element selenium. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with making a sub procedure. So step one, we're going to see how to log in somewhere. So let's just call this sub login. Sub login. And we have two different places we're going to log in today. We're going to log into BYU because I know you all have an account there, and we'll also log in at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.org because I'm pretty sure that all or most of you have accounts there as well. So let's start there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go there in Chrome. So Church, Jesus Christ. Do we own that one? Oh yeah, Church of Jesus Christ. We'll do it. Wonderful. Oh, it's still forwarding to LDS.org. That's interesting. Oh, look, LDS.org is now churchofjesuschrist.org. Learn more. That's all right. I know enough already. Okay, but since it's routing us here, let's go ahead and do this. Now, what I'd like to do, I would like to get to where I can log in. Isn't there like a place where you can log in? It feels like I'm on a cell phone. That means must be I'm zoomed in. Hold on just a second. Control minus. There we go. Okay, so my account and sign in. That's what I'm after. All right, so this is the page. I thought that's what I was after. I'm just trying to sign in. That shouldn't be so hard. I'm connected. There we go. So here's the page that I would like to be able to take us to and sign in. To be able to do this, we're going to have to, number one, get to this page. Number two, we've got to find this input box, this text box, and drop in a username. We've got to find the password. We've got to find this button and click on it. And, we've got to kind of wait and tell what state the browser's in to know, or is it time to move on? Or should we keep waiting for the page to come back? And so that's looking at us in Chrome, but we're going to have to do it with Internet Explorer. So let's go ahead and get started. That's where we're headed. We want to automate the login at this page. All right, so step one is I'm going to have to add a reference to the Microsoft Internet Controls. I think it's just called Microsoft Internet Controls. And that is at Tools, References. So I'll choose Tools, References, and then I got to go find Microsoft Internet Controls. Microsoft Internet Controls, there it is. Make sure you put a check in the box, not just make it blue, but you got to check it. And that will, kind of like we're working with the databases, is that the objects that we need to use to do this aren't built in native to Excel. We've got to tell VBA, hey, there's some library that we're going to use. There's a question in the back. Tools, references, that gets you there. And then Microsoft Internet Controls. Now that I've got that reference, oops, that should be a single quote. Now that I have that reference, I should be able to say dim, i.e., as an Internet Explorer object, Internet Explorer. Now, somebody look at that line and tell me what I've done. Tell me what that line does. Does it allocate a lot of memory, a little bit of memory? It's a dim statement, so it's making it variable, but someone talk me through it. Take a stab at it, As it turns out, we're recording your voice, but no one on YouTube is going to know who you are. If you get it wrong, it's not going to be embarrassing. Maybe a little bit in the class. Oh, I don't know what that is. Anyone want to tell me just tell me what's happening here? You scratched. That's like volunteering. Go ahead. What do you think? Okay, so we're declaring a variable, but the thing I want to point out here is we're making a variable. We're not making an Internet Explorer object. right? Just like if we say dim r as range, we're making an object that can refer to a range. We're not making the range. And so here, we're just making an object that can refer to an Internet Explorer object. We still have to do something to create the Internet Explorer object because it's not already existing as a part of Excel. Go ahead. Yes, let's give it a shot. You really asked instead of typing it. It was only 3 letters, IE dot, and you would have had the answer to that. I'm glad to answer the question, but yeah, it's exactly what it does. So now, because we declared it not as object, we declared it as Internet Explorer, it goes, oh, the browser, my editor says, I know something about Internet Explorer object. I know the properties and methods that you have for Internet Explorer. That's good. Okay, but first, before we start working with it, we're gonna set it to be a new Internet Explorer object. So set IE equal to new Internet Explorer. Now that is going to create the Internet Explorer object, and it's going to bind our variable onto it so we can use that to refer to and control that object. Now, as it turns out, when you create any application this way, and strange, we could do the same thing with Word. Right? We could create an instance of Word and bind it to a variable, and we could remote control Word. Or PowerPoint, or there's lots of different programs that we can remote control this way. By default, they're invisible. So just in case you want to do this on the sly, right? You don't especially want your user to see that you're accessing the internet, unless you're doing something devious, but there's no reason for them to interact with it, then this starts off invisible. And so you can manipulate it while it's invisible and close it with never ever showing it to the user. That's kind of nice. But for our purposes today, we kind of want to see it. We've got to figure out how to work with this thing. So how do you think we'd make it visible? Any guesses? IE dot, what should I put in to look, to test? Show is a good guess. Let's take a look at show. There's show browser bar. Browser bar. Kind of sounds like an internet cafe. It's a browser bar. I don't know. No show. How about visible? Visible. There's a property called visible. And so we'll set that equal to true. And so this should create an instance of Internet Explorer, and now it should become visible. And let me go ahead and stop my code right there. So I'll go ahead and run this, and we should see that happen. Here it is. Now, if you're like me, at this point, I'm waiting for the page to load. And about now, I'm going, I remember Internet Explorer. It's been a long time since I used it. I remember it being slow, but this is really slow. And then I'm going to wait and wait. It's not even on the page. And about now, I realize it doesn't even have a URL in it. And then I go, oh. Normally, when you open the browser, it says, I'm a browser. I got to browse somewhere. But now, when we open it here, it's saying, listen, you're in control of this through code. I'm not going to do anything unless you tell me to do it. So it's not going to take you to the default home page. It's not going to go anywhere until we tell it to go somewhere. Okay? So that's kind of the first thing that's a little bit unusual here. Now, where's my page I'm trying to go to? So here it is. I'm just going to copy the URL here. And that's where I'm trying to go. In fact, you'll notice it has this go to HTTPS something. By the way, what is this %3a or the %2f? What's that? Yeah, so there are certain characters that are not allowed to be in a URL, or they have special meaning in a URL, like the colon character, the slash. That means something. And so if I want to have a colon or a slash as part of a parameter, it has to be encoded. And so that's what we're seeing. %3a, that's the hexadecimal representation of the colon. 2f is the hexadecimal representation of the slash. That's just what those are. And it turns out this is just telling me where to go after I log in. And you know what? I don't think I want to go anywhere after I log in. Well, nowhere special. So I'm just going to get rid of that part. And this will be enough for me. So that's the URL I'm trying to go to. So somebody, now that you can say IE dot, do IE dot and tell me what method should I use. Look at those methods. Get the list of methods and tell me if I'm going to try to send my browser off to a web page, what method should I use? You'll find it in short order. What's that? It's not the address bar. You're remembering from that other one. That was to show the address bar and kind of make that go away or something in the browser. Not a search. I didn't know there was location URL. Very good. That was like stereo. That was pretty good. Nope. Looking for a method. We'll use location today, but not at this point. Nope, keep going. Navigate, there you go. There's a method called navigate. And as it turns out, when you're working with an object you're not familiar with, I think our tendency today a lot is to say, oh, you know what, let's just Google it and find someone to tell me. But it's a useful exercise, just to kind of read through and say, what are the properties and methods? Oh, there's one called navigate. Oh, I bet navigate probably going to navigate us somewhere. Okay. So IE.navigate. There's actually a navigate and a navigate too. I'm not sure what the difference is. I've used them both. They both seem to do the same thing to me. It's like in case one breaks, you've got a spare hanging around. I don't know what it is. Probably something a little bit different. Maybe navigate 2 has some extra parameters to it. Anyway, both of them, you give them a URL. And so that's going to take the browser to that page. So let me just go ahead and kind of split my screen. Probably a little more heavily to the browser than I want to be. All right, now I'm going to try to run that. I'm going to try to, I'm already there. Oh, this isn't my browser. Is this IE? I don't think that's IE. There we go, that's IE, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so now I'm going to execute this line. And we should see it navigate that page to what I'm looking for. Fortunately, it took me somewhere else as well. Let me go ahead and close this. Welcome to the web. You shouldn't be using me. You should use Microsoft Edge. Well, I agree with the not using you part. I'm not so sure about the use Edge part. Okay. So that now navigates me to this page. So now my next step is to try to drop this information in. Here's the part that is going to be a little bit more complex. So first question I have for you, how many of you have even some limited experience writing or reading HTML text, like the actual source of a page? Looks like most of you do. And some of you are going, I'll look at it in the browser, but in terms of actually looking at the structure underneath, we're going to have to get a little bit familiar with that. Not greatly familiar to be able to be effective here, but we'll have to be a little bit comfortable with it. So here's what I'm going to do. I need to get a reference to this object. This whole document's made up of all different objects. There's a paragraph object here. There's a link object here. It's actually called an anchor object here. There's an input object here. There's a button object here. I got to be able to figure out which one of those objects I want to bind onto to work with. And so I'm going to right-click and choose Inspect Element. I'm right-clicking right on this place where I'm trying to put in my username. So I put my insertion point there. I right-click and say Inspect Element. And it should come up before too long. I think it's trying to get me to the right place. There we go. So now it says, hey, here's the line of code, HTML code, that produces the thing you're inspecting. So what kind of tag is it? You're seeing up there, it's not really large, but maybe you can see it. Yeah, what kind of tag? It's an input tag. That makes kind of sense. That's where I would input something. It has a name, tab index, a class, an ID, some other stuff about it. That's what it is. Now, if I am so fortunate that this tag has either a name or an ID, I breathe a sigh of relief. Do sigh of relief, everyone with me. Because if it has a name or an ID, I can go directly to it. Now, all the rest of the tags, I can still get to them, but without a name or an ID, it's going to take a little more work. But this one's got both a name and an ID. Of those two, I prefer the ID. The ID, according to the HTML specification, the ID is to be unique across all tags on the page. There could be multiple tags with the same name, but the ID should be unique. So if we have the choice, we'll use the ID. Almost always the name is unique anyway, so if it has a name but no ID, you're pretty well good with that one as well. So it's called ID token 1, and case is going to matter here. So that's how I'm going to refer to that particular object. Now, that's going to be the name of it, but I got to figure out, what do I do with that name to get there? It turns out there's built into the Internet Explorer object, well, to the document of the object, there's a collection of all the tags. And just like a collection of the worksheets in a workbook, I can refer to elements in that collection either by the name, like, sheet number 5, or by its position, using either the number or the name, and that's the same thing here. So if we have a name or an ID, we can just use that to go straight to the object Otherwise, we've got to figure out which number it is, and we'll talk about that later today as well. So I'm going to say IE.document. ID.document dot, and unfortunately, I only get the first level of help. The document has all kinds of properties and methods. And the one we need here is called all. So all is the collection of all the tags in that document. So here, I'm just going to come here and say all, and then I'm going to put the name of that, or the ID of that, which is ID token 1, capital ID. The token is capital 2, T, lowercase o-k-e-n, 1. And that's going to get me, but I got to do something with that. You cut this out. You go ahead and leave that there. I'm going to cut this out and just take it to my immediate window. Somebody has made very, very small. And I'm just going to, this is going to be a reference to the object. Every HTML tag has a property called tag name. So far as I know, that is the only property that every tag shares. And so if I just want to, I want to make sure I've got a valid reference to the object, I'm going to come here to the immediate window, and I'm in break mode, so my Internet Explorer object is bound on to Internet Explorer, and I just want to ask what the tag name is of that tag. And it comes back and it tells me something, input. Oh, yeah, I knew it was an input tag because I looked at it. It didn't give me new information. But what it does tell me is that's a valid reference to that tag. I've got a reference to that object. So great. So what am I going to do with it? So that is a reference to the tag itself. What do you think? I want to change what's showing in that tag. Take a guess at the property. What might it be? If you were writing the language and you were saying, I want to, create a property that would let you change what's being shown inside this input tag, what would you name the property? A little louder? Text might be pretty good. Change sounds more like a method or an event. So text is close, not it. Another guess? Value. Yeah, so it turns out it's value. And by the way, how would you look that up? You'd look for the Internet Explorer object, document object. Just Google that, and you'll find a reference to the document object. So we're looking for the value. And I'm going to set that to my username, which, oddly enough, is my first name. When you have a strange first name, you can use it as your username at churchofjesuschristoflatterdaysaints.org. So I'm just going to drag back up to that line. And I'm going to play. Now watch, because this is like one of the amazing moments of the day. When I hit play over here, you're going to see that name pop here into the browser. So we put that information there. Feeling pretty good about it. We're going to do the same thing for the other one, and we could inspect that and find out what its ID is, and we would find out it is ID token 2, oddly enough. So I'm going to do ID token 2. And I'll put my password in. And I'll run that line. And now I've dropped the password in there. Now I just have to submit it. Now, as it turns out, there's kind of two fundamentally different ways to submit this information. And it goes back to a little bit about the history of the internet. In the early days of the internet, all we had was HTML. Since then, we got more active script like JavaScript that can, make our lives a little bit more interesting on the internet. But in the early days, it was just static. There was no scripting language available. And so the way that we had our only choice to submit things was to submit it using the form. In fact, almost always when we look at this code, we're going to see that these tags that we collect the information up to be able to submit to a server are built inside of a form. So let me just kind of go up the hierarchy here until I find a tag, the tag name of form, that is holding all this stuff. So here's the form. It has a name but no ID. If your form has an action property, the action property of the form is the part that says, when you submit this form, this is where the information goes. And so it used to be that was always available on a form. But now that we have JavaScript, and it's, folks are trying to do all these kind of fancy things with JavaScript, it may be that the form no longer knows how to submit itself. It could just be a form that doesn't have an action property. And when you hit submit, it runs some JavaScript that says, let's build another form here in memory, and then let's submit that form separately. And so sometimes it's easier to say, oh, if it has an action, just submit the form. Otherwise, find the button and click on the button. And usually one of those two things will get this form to submit. We'll see both of them here today. So because this form has a name, if it had an ID, that would be even better, but it has a name, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm going to try to refer to that the same way I refer to these other ones. So I'll just copy that line, which I think I already have copied. And the name of the object is, I forgot it already. The name of the object is form. It's called login with a capital L. So login. And the form has a method called submit. And that will try to submit the information. Right? If the form's configured to submit the data, it might not be, and we'll see our other option for that. All right. So I'm going to run this, but I want you to watch something as I do. I want you to tell me which one happens first. Does this form come back with its information? And it's going to fail the login because I haven't put my real username in, but you'll see it activate. Does that page come back first, or does the yellow bar hit the stop first? I'm going to hit play. So watch right now. Watch closely. 3, 2, 1, launch. Which one happened first? Yeah, I got to the stop first. So what does that tell you about what's going on when I say submit? It's submitted, and as soon as it's submitted, what does my code do? My code keeps going. That's going to be a problem. Because if I'm trying to submit, and then I want to do something with the data that comes back, my code's going to get there before the data is actually back. Okay, so we'll have to deal with that. But we can see that it tried to submit, and it tells me, I wasn't. How many of you actually successfully submitted? Used your real username and password, and a few of you actually did that. Great. And you logged in, you authenticated, okay? Yeah, good. Okay, so now let me go ahead and close this. And let's see, how do we tell this thing to wait until the page comes back? And that's one of the things that I've tried to make your life a little bit easier with our mod IE tools. So let me come over here to mod IE tools. And the very first sub-procedure that we have up here is called wait for. What wait for does is it says, all right, first, we're in a couple loops, but the first line that's meaningful here, it says, listen, we're going to wait for a second. Application.wait says wait until a particular time comes around. What time are we doing? Well, the current time plus 1 second. So this says wait for a second. We'll talk about what attach IE does here in just a moment. Actually, let's go ahead and talk about it now. Attach IE is just the next function right here. But what it does, and this is just kind of a quirk about Internet Explorer, it has a few quirks, is that sometimes when you follow a link or you submit a form, the Internet Explorer object spawns a copy of itself. And it says, I'm going to serve this new page in a different copy of Internet Explorer. Well, the problem is your Internet Explorer object is bound to the other one. And so we need something that can kind of look at all the Internet Explorer windows that are out there and find out which one's the most recently opened one and say, oh, a new one just opened, we're going to attach onto that one. And that's what attach IE does. It says, just in case Internet Explorer has forked itself and given me a new copy, I want to be attached to the most recent one. And we probably won't go look at the code for that one, but that's what attach IE does. And it's right here. With a little bit of work, we could get through it, but let's not spend the time on it today. So it says, just in case this window opened in a new window, attach onto that, or this browser opened in a new browser, let's attach onto that one, and then we're going to loop until that object is not busy. So it has a property called busy. When it's in the middle of trying to do something, it goes, yeah, I'm busy. Busy is true. So I'm going to say if busy is true, don't let me out, but if busy is not true, so if busy is false, no longer busy, that's good. And if the ready state is 4. Ready state 4 says I'm done doing stuff. It's like 4, maybe 5 different ready states. 1 is I'm contacting the server. 2, I'm waiting for the response. 3, I'm receiving the response. 4, or maybe 3 is I'm rendering the document. I've got the document and I'm now rendering the document. And then 4 is I'm done. I'm done. And so if it's not busy and the ready state is 4, we say, great, that's done. But as it turns out, one little unfortunate thing is that the web server might send back a page that says, hey, here's a page, and all that page says is, I'm not the real page. The real page is somewhere else. In which case, you might actually end up being not busy and in ready state 4, but you don't really have the page yet because it has to make another trip to get the page. And so after we get out of that loop that says we're now done loading the page, it then waits 1 more second, and then it checks to see if it's still not busy and at ready state 4, and if it is, it lets out. But after waiting that second, if we're not still, or if we become busy again and we're not at ready state 4, it comes back into this loop and it waits here again until that page is done, and then it lets out. So this is a little bit complex to be able to know when the page is done, but that will now pause for it. So this is called wait for, and I have to send it a reference to Internet Explorer object. And I'm going to do that right here. So I'm going to submit, and then I'm just going to say wait for IE. All right. So now I'm going to drag my insertion point back up here to where I fill in the username, fill in the password, and submit. And now let's watch which one happens first. Does the yellow bar get to the stop, or does the page come in first? Yeah, now the page is there first, and it will always be a delay of at least 2 seconds because it comes in a loop, it waits for a second, and then it checks. If it passes, it waits for another second. So you'll always have a 2-second delay here. And then I'm still not there. But that then is the process of getting myself logged in. And that would get me logged in. Any questions? Oh, one more. We've seen how to do the login. We can find the form and submit it. But let's also see how we would click that button. So it turns out Internet Explorer doesn't seem to want to inspect this button very well. Let me try it again real quick. Inspect element. Oh, it found it okay for me this time. It didn't earlier when I tried it. So now I see I've got an input with a name of login.submit. Does it have an ID? Yeah. Here's the ID. Login submit button. And so I'm going to use that to refer to that object. It's not the form, it's just the button. Oh, I copied the whole thing. Login submit button. Okay, so instead of the submit, I'm going to tell it to click. So buttons have a method called click, and that will click. This should do the same thing. Instead of submitting the form, it should just say, oh, someone clicked on my button, and then whatever that button does when you click on it, the browser should do that on its own. So let me go ahead and clear off the error message. And I'm going to come back to where I put in my parameters. I'll run that. And this one should get us submitted as well. It goes through the same submit process. Questions? Show me how you're feeling about this. Just on a scale of 0 to 5, 5 being I'm feeling pretty comfortable with what we've done so far. I'm seeing, so give me some fingers. I'm seeing some 4s and some 5s. We've got a couple of 2s out there, some 3s. Okay. We've got several more examples here, so hopefully you'll be coming along. But this is kind of the first approach. So next approach, and so in this one, we are totally automating the login process. Right? In this case, we could close the, or we could never even show the browser. Leave it hidden, go to that page, put in the username, put in the password, click the submit button, and that should be okay. The next approach would be for something that maybe is beyond the capability of Excel to be able to navigate the whole login process. How many of you use Duo, two-factor authentication for your BYU account? Probably almost all of you. And so we can't automate that, right? We can't have VBA somehow typing onto your cell phone to do the two-factor authentication. So in this case, what we might do is say, well, let's go ahead and open up Internet Explorer, and let's let the user log in, and then once they've logged in, let's figure out that they've logged in, and then we'll move on and do whatever it is that we need to do. So that's going to be our next approach. So let's go ahead and copy this code, and I'll make a copy of this. We'll do login 2. And we'll modify that one. Okay, so this one will be login 2. We'll still dim Internet Explorer, but let's do something, we'll do a few things a little bit more involved this time. So now, I told you there's this thing called attach that will attach to an already open Internet Explorer window. I wrote that for the strange case when Internet Explorer splits itself and you have kind of two copies, you have to be attached onto one or the other. But it turns out what it does, it just attaches onto the most recently opened Internet Explorer window. And so I can use that to try to instead of opening a new copy, I can attach to an existing copy. I've already got one open. No reason to keep opening another copy every time I run this. If there's one open, let's just use it. And so let's see how to do that. I'm still going to set IE to an Internet Explorer. I'm sorry. Still going to dim IE as an Internet Explorer object. But now I'm going to try to attach. Oh, I'm going to go peek over at attach though for one more thing here. And that is, you'll notice that attach is a function and it returns a Boolean value. Okay. So it's going to return true or false. Tell me what you think it means if it attaches, if I call the attach method and it returns true. What is that telling me? Yeah, it's successfully attached. If it returns false, it means I couldn't attach. There was nothing for me to attach onto. And so I'm going to use that neat little thing to say, all right, let's just see if we can attach to it. If attach, IE. I've got my IE variable here. If I can attach that onto an Internet Explorer object, then actually, if I can't attach it, if not attach, then I want to set IE to a new Internet Explorer object. All right, there's a brilliant little block of code that I am really proud of. Someone tell me what it does that is so fantastic. Maybe fantastic is too strong of language. What does it do that kind of streamlines my process here? It makes this process work better than it otherwise would. Just kind of talk me through what this code is doing. Anyone want to take a stab at it? Nobody? Go ahead. Yeah, that's exactly right. It just says, listen, just try to attach. If attach returns false, meaning it couldn't attach to a window, then this whole expression here will be true. In that case, I'll come into the if and I'll create a new copy of the Internet Explorer window. In either case, I'm going to make it visible just in case I happen to attach onto an invisible one. So I want the setting it visible to be outside of my if statement. And then I'm ready to go. So I should now be able to attach right onto this one directly. And that's nice, especially when you're debugging, because otherwise you open up another copy, you got lots of copies open. This will be nice. All right, now I want to go ahead and log in at byu.edu. So let's do this. I'm going to go to Learning Suite. In fact, I think I already have Learning Suite open over here. Oh no, I don't. So Learning Suite. I'm going to come to Learning Suite. So when I come to Learning Suite, the URL, I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole URL because the target URL is going to be important to me here. So Learning Suite does kind of a weird thing, and that is it puts in the URL part of the session that it's maintaining, something to keep track of its session. Everyone has a different value for this part, right? After Learning Suite, byu.edu, you've got something besides .1pnl or pni there. That's because part of that is, which session it's connected to. So here's what's going to happen. Let me go ahead and log out. And I'm going to try to come back to just go to learningsuite.byu.edu. Just drop this in here. Copied it instead of pasting it. Now, when I hit enter, it's going to say, wait a minute, you're not logged in. And it's going to route me to my login page. Well, great. I'm going to sign in. It's going to, say I want to do duo factor authentication. Yeah, that's wonderful. Approve. And now I should be logged in. But now, I didn't highlight the parts I wanted to highlight. Okay, let's try that again. So when I go here, the point is it's taking me to a different URL. It is no longer at Learning Suite. I went to Learning Suite and it said, no. You got to go to CAS first, Central Authentication Service. Go get authenticated, and then once you authenticate, we'll go to Learning Suite. And in fact, after I authenticate here, it'll take me right through to Learning Suite. So the idea here is that I'm going to say, I'm going to try to go to Learning Suite. And if I go to Learning Suite straight away, I must already be logged in. Otherwise, I just want to pause my code. I want to wait until the user logs in. but I want to keep watching to see if I'm logged in. And if I'm logged in, once the user logs in, I'm ready to take off and have my code do whatever it is I want it to do. And so that's what we're going to try to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to Learning Suite, even though I know it won't take me to Learning Suite. It's going to take me to CAS. Now, I'm not going to try to plug in this. Well, I could still plug in username and password and just wait for the user to authenticate. But the idea here is I don't want my code to be involved in the authentication business at all. I'm not going to hold credentials. I mean, the truth is I've just taught you how to put a password into your code. That's probably not a really good idea. What should you do instead? You should not put it in your code. That's what you should do instead. So, maybe you should make a little form that kind of pops up and lets the user type in their password, username and password. So you have to put it in the code, or you could have it in a file that, at least it's not in your code, it's separate from the code. But in this case, I don't want to deal with the credentials at all. So I'm going to navigate to that page, and I'm just going to get rid of the rest of this stuff here. So I'm not going to be doing that. But now, I've told it to navigate, and now I'm going to take myself into a loop. Do loop. You put a do events in here, and then let me do a wait for load. That way, in case Internet Explorer splits itself, I'll be attached onto the most recent one. Wait for load, I'm sorry, it's called wait for IE. So wait for IE, do events, and now I'm going to loop until, now here's the tough part. I want to loop until I've made it to Learning Suite. Well, how can I know if I've made it to Learning Suite? The answer is the document has a property called location that tells you the URL that it's showing. It just tells you the URL that's right up here. Well, I can't go until I get to a particular URL because this URL is going to give me, some junk in here. But everything up to here should be the same. So let me just see how long that is. What's the length of that? Almost got it. Oh, that's 30 characters. So I want to sit here and just kind of keep doing this loop where I wait for the page to load and then check, wait for the page to load and check, until the leftmost 30 characters of the URL is Learning Suite. And so UNTIL, the left of something, 30, let me get the syntax in here, is equal to that. Now, what am I looking at? IE.document.location. So the location is the URL that's showing in the address bar. So we're going to continue to loop and wait for the user to get himself or him or herself logged in until we get to Learning Suite. Once we get to Learning Suite, we should get out of this loop and continue on with our code. Go ahead. Okay, I kind of missed the question. That's only 29 characters, by the way. Stand by for a second. Say your question again.
The login part doesn't sync the web.
Oh, what if where I'm going, if when you get to the login, it's still doing that? There will be something different about the URL. So there will definitely be something different about it that you can use to check. If not, I mean, if it still is the same thing, the other place you can look is you can actually look into the source of the page. Instead of looking at the URL, you can say, is something on this page what I'm looking for? And I'm going to show you how to reach into the HTML and look at the source of the page. I'll show you that today. That's the other place you could look, is you could look at the page.
There's no status, I have.
So the question is, there's no status to let you know if you're logged in or something, and the answer is, yeah, the browser doesn't know if you're logged in. The browser might know it has a cookie. You could, if you know something about the cookie that's going to get loaded there to manage the session, you could look for that. Lots of ways that you could do to look at it. Okay, so now I think we're pretty good. Let's see, we're going to wait for IE. I guess I don't need another wait for IE down here, but it wouldn't hurt to leave it there. Maybe I'll get rid of it because I've got it inside the loop. Okay, so now let me go ahead and get my Internet Explorer window open here. And I'm going to go ahead and run this one. And we should see that it comes down here, it attaches to this one, it's going to send me to Learning Suite, it'll redirect, take me to the central authentication service, wait for me to log in. Once I successfully log in, we'll see it advance and hit the stop here. So this should be pretty good. All right, so here I am, it's waiting for me to log in. My code is still running. I'm sitting up here running. I'm waiting a second and checking. Waiting a second and checking. Waiting a second and checking. So I'll go ahead and authenticate. It's going to ask me for my Duo authentication. I'm going to authenticate here. All right, I'm about to authenticate, so let's watch and see. We should see it hit yellow here, and I'm approving. This now is taking me there. It's now there. I should recognize it here, and it's let me out. I'm ready to move on with whatever I would want to do with that page in an automatic way after I've gotten here. Questions? Okay. You're stuck in a loop? So if you're stuck in a loop, you got to make sure that you've got 30 characters in what you're comparing this to. So here, if you don't have this trailing slash, you only have 29 characters. So the leftmost 30 characters will never equal that. Does that make sense? You're still there? Hey, Parker, can you go take a look at his and see if you can find out why he's not exiting that loop? Okay, so the next part that we'll want to do is actually reach out and get some of the data that's behind whatever we're trying to get behind this login. Now, the unfortunate part for this example is that the whole point of having, all of us having our individual logins is that whenever we get to our personal data, it's going to be different. And I need to be, on this example, it needs to be something that we're all looking at as being the same. And so even though the real powerful part of this example is automatically get yourself logged in and then go and do something behind the password, at this point, it's the same whether we're logged in or not. So we're going to shift to pull some data from a page that we don't have to log into to get access to. That way we're all dealing with the same thing. So I'm going to run this example out, and we'll make a new sub-procedure. In fact, I may go ahead and copy login 2, and we'll call this one get data. So get data. You get it figured out, Parker? Ooh, what was it? Oh, I don't know what location name is, but yeah, good. You figured out location. Wonderful. Isn't Parker great? It's great. Okay, so we're going to get attached. We're going to make ourselves visible. We're going to navigate somewhere. This one we're going to change. And then do until wait for load. I think we'll just go to stop right there. So I'm just going to go, and we're going to take a look at the Marriott School directory. So Marriott. Go there in Chrome. I think I'll get there in Chrome a little more easily. Yeah, so this is what I'm looking for. marriottschool.byu.edu directory alphabetic. Oops. So that's the URL that I want to go to. And I want to wait for load. So I'm going to wait for IE. Can you tell I used to call that wait for load? It's now just called wait for IE. You open up get my Internet Explorer open again. So I'll go ahead and run this one, and let's make sure that we've gotten to that point, to where it should get us to the Marriott School of Management directory. And now we're ready to start pulling information in here. So I've just barely got this code up here. Is it all showing? It's not quite all showing. Well, let's go ahead and get ourselves to this point. All right, so now we've got this pulling up the page that we're after. This is the page that we want to get data from. There's a couple of different approaches that we can use. The first one, now remember that the web query wizard is fantastic. If the data happens to be like in a table or it's somehow going to be easy to work with, if I could just say, just pull this data right into Excel, that would be great. But remember, if I'm trying to get past, if I first have to get past a login, the web query wizard won't do it. So, in fact, probably don't even go look at the code on this one. I've written another sub-procedure inside IE tools that's called import page. What import page does is it says, all right, you've got a browser with it's showing some page. What we're going to do, and even though it might be behind a password, what we're going to do is we're going to take the HTML that's showing right there, we're going to write it to a local file on your computer. Then we're going to point the web query wizard at the local file on your computer, because that local file on your computer does not have a password on it. And so we can kind of bootstrap our way to the nice features of the web query wizard. But for that to work, we have to actually have this saved, because it's going to try to save it at wherever this workbook is. And until I've saved this workbook, there's no path. So let's go ahead and get our workbook saved somewhere. I will call this browse. I'll put this in downloads. And I'm going to call it IE winter of 19.xlsm. Okay. So now I should be able to say import page. It wants to know an Internet Explorer object to work with, IE, and a sheet name to put the data on. Sheet name I'm just going to call faculty. Now when I run import page, it's going to look at what I've got shown in the browser. It's going to write it down to the disk, point the web query wizard at that file on the disk, and just do whatever the web query wizard does to pull the page in. And let's make sure I hit F5 on the right one. And that should now have brought that data in onto a sheet called faculty. And here's the folks. So if all I'm after is like the name and the title and the department they're in, it's all right here now. I've brought that into Excel. Still not in very good format, so I'll have to write something that goes through and kind of cleans this up and maybe parses it apart. But let's suppose that what I really need are the links, or I need to follow the links. Like I actually got to get to these guys' phone numbers. It's like the end, I got to go to the phone numbers. Web query wizard won't help me there. But if that is the data I'm after, import page just brings it right in. That's kind of slick. But that's not really what I'm after. So I'll comment that out. And now what I want to do is I want to go and get the links. We probably won't have time to follow the links today, but at least want to get the links. So let's take a look at how we're going to get this link. So I'm going to right-click this link right here and say inspect. And here's the tag. It's an anchor tag. So that's the A. Does it have an ID or a name? My life is good if it has an ID or a name. Does it? It has neither one of those things. So my only hope is to figure out what number of tag this is to be able to refer to it. Fortunately, I have given you a method for just such a thing. This one I am going to come take a peek over here in mod IE tools, and I think it's the next one down. It's called get tag number. I pass it an Internet Explorer object to work with, a tag name, in this case it'll be A because it's the anchor tag, and then I pass it some identifying text, some text that's going to be unique about the thing that I'm looking for. You know, I'm trying to find the first occurrence that looks like, that's an anchor tag that looks like fill in the blank. So if I go back to my page here, it's got a class called name link. That's pretty good, because after all, I'm looking for the name links. I mean, it happens that even the class that it's built for the CSS is pretty good. So here's what I'm going to do. We do this first in the immediate window. I'm just going to print, what was it? Get tag number. Yeah, I'm going to give it IE. I'm looking for the anchor tag, and I'm looking for name link. It's just some text. So what it's going to do is it's going to loop through the whole document, looking tag at a time until it finds an anchor tag that looks the way I've told it to look. And so it's looking for something in there that's going to be unique. I'm looking for the first one that says name hyphen link. And that should show me the number of the tag that is. That's going to give me the tag number that I'm looking for. So now I'm ready to at least get to the first one. We'll see what we'll have to do to be able to find the next one. All right, so let me get back to the code I'm writing. I've waited for the page. Here I am. And now I'm going to say, let me declare a couple of variables here. Dim tag no as a long integer. And let me dim tag as an object. Tag number equals, and I'll get that tag number. Now let me set the tag equal to ie.document.all and the tag number. So I'm asking for the 433rd tag, and I'll run those. Oops. Let me see what tag ie.document.all. That all looks pretty good to me. What have we got wrong? Let's see what tag number is. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm binding an object onto an object variable onto an object. So I need to say set. Thank you. So the tag number should be 433. And I should be able to say tag dot tag name. And that tells me, yeah, that's the anchor tag. Now there's also a property called outer HTML. And that's the whole tag. That's the whole text, the whole HTML of the tag. By the way, there's one called inner HTML, which is just what's between the opening and closing tags. So the opening tag is here, closing tag is here. Inner HTML should just be Adams Gregory. Or I can ask for the class name or the href, which is what I'm really after. And so that's getting me the URL that I'm trying to collect here. So the href, that's pretty good. Let me just go ahead and do a debug.print of tag.href. In fact, while I'm at it, let me go ahead and put the faculty's name, which is going to be what's in the inner HTML. So tag.inner HTML and then href. All right, so clear this out. We'll set the tag number, and then that should find that tag and print out the first guy with the URL. And the URL is what I'm after. Let's say what I'm doing. Let's say step 1, get the URLs of all the individual pages. Step 2, go open those pages one at a time so I can get the email address so I can spam these guys and tell them whatever I'm trying to tell them. I'm sure exactly what the Marriott School doesn't want us doing. I'm showing you how to do it. By the way, next time we get together, we'll talk about the legality of what we're doing, because I'm giving you tools today that will let you break the law in ways that you may not realize are against the law. So we'll talk about that. Okay, but first we got to figure out how are we going to get to the next. How are we going to get to the next one? This finds the first one. How are we going to get to the next one? Well, let's do this. Get tag number. Let me put a comma right here and see what other things show up here. So I've got identifying text. That's good. And then I have start at tag number. So I'm going to find the first tag that meets these criteria. It's got the tag name, it's got the identifying text, but I'm not necessarily starting at the beginning. I might start somewhere deeper. So watch this. I'm going to start at tag number plus 1. What's tag number the very first time I hit this line? Yeah, it's 0. It's a default value for a numeric variable. So I'm going to start at tag number 1. And from there, I'm going to find the first tag that is an anchor tag that says name link in it. And it's going to tell me that number. If I was able to come back to this again, let's say it was 433. Now I'm going to start with tag number 434 and look for the next one that meets that criteria. So let's go ahead and just put a loop in here. Do and a loop. Now, it turns out that get tag number will return a -1 if it doesn't find the tag. And so right here, after I set the tag number, I want to check. I just got the tag number. Let's check to see if it's really a real tag number. If tag number is equal to -1, then I think we're done. Exit do. Otherwise, we've got a valid tag number. Go ahead and bind on to that tag and print off the information. Otherwise, we're done with the loop. Question? I'm going to run this whole thing through, and let me put a breakpoint right here, and we'll run up to here. Okay, so now this is my first time through here. I've just barely gotten to this loop. What is tag number? What is tag number right now? Tag number is 0, right? I haven't done anything to it, so it's going to have its default value, which is 0. If I hover over it, it'll probably tell me 0. Yep. And so I'm going to start looking at tag number 1. Because I'm looking for 0 plus 1, and I'm going to try to find an anchor tag that says name link in it. And it's going to keep going. That's what get tag number does. It's going to keep going until going through the next tag, next tag, next tag, next tag, until it finds one that meets the criteria. It'll return us the number, and it's done. So let me go ahead and just run to this. Should we have a do events in there? That's a really good idea. Let's put do events in. Anytime I've got a do loop, do events is a good thing. All right, so Shift F8. Okay, so now we should have a tag number, 433, there it is. And we'll go ahead and go through this. Shift F8. And it's printed that first one off. But now we're going to start looking at 434. So 433 is the one we have. We're going to say start looking at 434 and find the next one. So let's execute that line. We're checking to see if it's -1, it means it didn't find it. It's not -1, so it found it. What is the tag number now? 437. And so we're ready to print 437. Who's 437? Shift F8. It's Adams, Agel, Albrecht, Alliger, Alan Abigail. Alan Gov. Whew, there I am. Or we can just go ahead and get rid of the breakpoint and cut it loose. And it will just go through that whole page, finding the next one, finding the next one, finding the next one, until it's gotten through it all. At this point, it got to Zimbelman, it printed them out, it came here and said, okay, now look for the tag after Zimbelman and find the next one. There was none there. So tag number was -1, and that's what let us out of the loop. We could capture those like into a collection or an array and then process that array to go through and actually get the data. And we'll do that the next time we get together. All right, last kind of poll for the day. Show me where you are. Scale of 0 to 5. I want to see. We got some 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. No one's 100%. A couple of you are 100%, but 4. Okay, good. So I think you're feeling pretty good. But it's the first time you've seen it, so you shouldn't feel perfect with it yet. We'll do another day on this, and that'll be Wednesday. So thanks for coming. Class oh, did I remind you? I advanced the due date. I pushed back the due date of the database project to Wednesday. And it's really just so that It's to help you procrastinate, because I would rather you procrastinate doing the database project than do it during conference. So take the time this weekend, enjoy conference, and then next week will be a pain. But anyway, it's due Wednesday. Thanks for coming. Class dismissed.